Welcome to Spark and Scale, the show for higher ed leaders learning, experimenting, and evolving how we shape our future. I'm your host, Mickey Baines. Come and join me. It's time to get started. Welcome back to another episode of Spark and Scale, our first episode of 2026. As we record this, we just had an announcement today that the company I work for, Kennedy and Company, has been acquired by Human Capital Education. Lots of emails out, a lot of notices to folks, press release going to the world to be shared amongst everyone that is in the higher ed space to read about it. But I wanted to really dive in and get deeper than what's on paper, what's behind logos of brands, and really just get to the heart of the story of why this acquisition made sense, why the two leaders of each of those companies thought it was a great idea to bring us together and hear it directly from them and make this a real story. So let's jump in. Welcome to the show, Justin McMorrow, CEO of Human Capital Education, and Ben Kennedy, CEO of Kennedy and Company Education Strategies. Welcome.
Thanks, Mickey.
Yeah, thanks. Good to be here.
So this is the first time I've ever had a colleague on the show. I'll be interviewing two bosses simultaneously, so no pressure on me as we go through this process. So I've got some questions, so please jump in and feel free to just give us the real answer. So the first question, before there were decks, before there were lawyers, before there were deal terms written on paper, what was the moment where you both thought there might be something here?
I was going to say, Justin, I think you were first at this, so I think you have to answer first.
I don't know if there was a single moment, Mickey, but, we're in such a people business that, we had acquired Human Capital Research Corporation last year and combined it with Ellesmere Education to make Human Capital Education. We were interested in adding capacity in Salesforce. So at the Salesforce Education Summit, we met you, Mickey. And so you were the first impression. And, it was interesting because you all also had a consulting business and strategy and operations, which we were not envisioning at the time. But as we thought more about it, and maybe it was stamped at the dinner we all had at the ASU GSV conference, where we really got into some depth talking about it. But that's where, the conversations and the start of the relationship with you guys really was where, to me, it crystallized and we said, this is something we really want to do.
Yeah, I think the dinner was a pivotal point. I think we talked a lot at the dinner about the things that, the companies had in common. We got back to the place where we were both experiencing a tremendous amount of growth in the work that we were doing, not in Salesforce, ironically, but in Slate, and said, if we put these two teams together, we could really have something. It's a great complement for all the work we do in sort of strategy and operations, which blends right over to the online. And then right after that dinner, even like maybe dessert hadn't come yet, Justin, you and I step out of the room.
Yeah.
And your hometown team, Houston, beats my alma mater, Duke, in the semifinals of the Final Four. And I still liked you. And I thought, okay, this still might have a chance.
Right.
So I think there's something to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I remember that now. I would not have remembered that before.
It's deeply ingrained in my memory, Mickey, but that's fine. You can gloss over it. Yeah.
So I know that behind this opportunity, we see good opportunity for growth for our partner clients as well, for our individual, really now singular company. But growth can be energizing. I think the three of us, if our colleagues look at us, they see the three of us as growth-minded people. But, beyond growth being something that we all find very energizing, it can also break things. What made you confident that this opportunity gives us a chance to make growth happen the right way?
Ben, I'll let you start on this one.
Yeah. I think when you get to a certain point, and Mickey, you and I have had lots of discussions along the years, when you get to a certain point of size as a company, you have lots of folks come and knock on your door and say, hey, would you be interested in talking about a merger, a partnership, an investment, an acquisition, whatever it might be. And we've had lots of those. Most of them didn't get beyond maybe 10 or 20 or 30 minutes. And I think part of the reason for that is that at least, at Kennedy and Company, we felt like there was still more to do and that we wanted to retain this sort of entrepreneurial spirit. We want to move and be flexible and go where the market in higher education consulting and technology needs us to go. I think we've got this competitive streak to us where they're big behemoths, 800-pound gorillas in the space in which we play. And boy, it'd be great to build that thing, a service or a technology or whatever it might be, that can really do it. One of the first and still most appealing things to me about this partnership, this merger, this acquisition that we're going through is that it's not a large sort of investment firm just buying us out. It's not some behemoth of a company. It's a company built on top of two other founder-led companies, Ellesmere Education and Human Capital Research Corporation. And so we have all been down this road of entrepreneurship. We've built really innovative things that have been serving higher ed now for over a decade. And I really wanted to retain that in whatever came next in an acquisition of Kennedy and Company. And I think we've come to a really good spot with that.
Yeah, I mean, Ben, I'll just add on to that. I mean, we all of the founders started their companies without capital from the outside, which as you think about growth, I used to find it as smart growth, which meant I could only afford to grow so much. So
been there.
Yeah. The nice part is it creates discipline. And, the discipline that we saw in Kennedy as well is that Kennedy was a profitable company. And, we've come out of an age where before a year or two ago, it was growth at all costs. And there were people, Ben, you probably got this too, that were criticizing me like, what are you doing being profitable? You should be pouring every cent and everything you can borrow into growth at all costs. Well, we've seen the repercussions of that with a few, large companies that have gone bankrupt. And, I think the discipline to create profitable companies is the growth story that we want. It's actually good for our partners that we're very solvent. I agree with Ben that we have a founder-led culture and mentality. We do have a private equity partner, but they're a minority investor, which allows the founders to lead the growth going forward. And, the growth has to stay smart and we have to deliver for our partners. That's everything we're trading on is the experience and expertise that we bring to the table. We are going to push hard and harder to create a better version of anything that's out there to solve some of the big problems, but we have to deliver. And, so we can't lose sight of that, because if we screw that, well, that screws up our growth opportunity. So, it is aligned.
That might actually be part of the answer, I think, to my next question. When you think about, these opportunities or these stories in the space, there's a concern that acquisitions can lead to realistically less focus, not more focus, especially in this space. What are you most intentional about protecting as we come together?
I mean, I'll just say it's our relationships that we have with our university partners. We call all of our universities that we work with partners. We hope that's the case, or at least it's aspirational. And then our employees, is we have to make sure that the people delivering the work aren't dealing with too much change internally, because if they are, it could impact what's happening with the partners that they work with. So, I think as far as we're concerned, if we take care of those two things, we'll be able to grow and do great things and be innovative in the space. If we ignore that, we get off track.
Yeah. I mean, I think that still remains my biggest fear on any given day, is sort of letting one of our partners, one of our clients down, and not having them be just happy with a single engagement that we've done with them. And I think I've heard and I've seen now that sort of same commitment with all the folks at Human Capital, and that really sort of assuaged a lot of our concerns that we were going to put that as the highest of our priorities. And then even as we've gotten to the point where we are now, where we're in the middle of integrations and meshing all things emails and technology and things like that, making it right so that it's a good experience for our combined employee base has been the highest priority. And that's been great to see as well. And I don't think it would have worked if that wasn't going to be the case.
Great. Just from the inside, it's starting to experience this integration piece, right? I'm a little surprised at how quickly some of the integration pieces are happening. It's only been a few weeks at this point, but smoothly, that they're happening fast without significant disruptions. All right, so let me jump into the next question. We're under a lot of pressure. Clients are under more pressure to move faster, especially as things like AI step into our world. What are you seeing in the industry that when you think of that and that type of pressure, what do you see in the industry now that made you feel like this is the right time to move on this opportunity?
I will tell you that, I've been involved in learning management systems, student information systems, online application systems. I have said over the years, you can't just focus on the technology, and maybe we all collectively have too much focus on individual products. That's not to say that this technology is not important. It's vastly important, but equal time on the process and the change management. And so I think as we think about AI, which I've said to you, Mickey, has been for a while, it felt like a solution in search of a problem. We have an opportunity with what we've brought together here. And this is going back to when we met and I started hearing about all the process work you do. If AI is going to work effectively for institutions or any other new innovative technology, you have to change business process as well. And we have the team to do both now. And that's really exciting. And then going back to our online education days, we have an outsourced team. I think of everything as people, process, and systems. We can provide the support for all three and the change management. And I think that's going to allow people to move quickly. And then as we're doing this work, we're training them. And if they want to off ramp to doing it themselves, great. There's tons of optionality and flexibility in this. But, adding the capacity that you all brought, especially around the strategy and operational consulting, is going to allow us to address that. I mean, we brought in some AI last year. It didn't work. We didn't change our business process. So I'm not pointing fingers at like, hey, this is unique. We're all working through it right now, but it's how do we get the right components together so that we can see the success of everything new that's coming out?
I think it's a great point. We work in such an interesting industry, right? Higher education, I wouldn't trade it for anything else. One of the things that we love to do in higher education is overanalyze, be really thoughtful and discerning, bring committees together and think about these things. With AI, I think there is some room to do that. And it's going to be incredibly important because there are these hugely sort of risk-filled questions that AI could help universities answer, but there's a lot of risk if you just let AI go forward in that way, in an unfettered way. And I think what's really interesting, though, especially in some of the work that I've done over the past couple of years, you've got institutions that desperately need operational changes, process changes, efficiency changes that AI can help them with. They've got to figure out the right way. But there are an awful lot of universities, an awful lot of colleges that have been pushed to the brink in one way or another, where they really need something transformational to bring them from where they are now to where they want to go. And that's been, lots of changes in the federal government, changes in the demographics that we're seeing hit right now. And there's going to be more to come. I think part of the opportunity that we have as human capital is to help guide clients that are risk averse in a very good way and are very thoughtful to make bigger changes faster, like you were saying, Mickey, because the institution absolutely needs it to happen in a 6-month time period rather than to happen over 3 or 4 years, because some of these schools that we work with don't have 3 or 4 years to figure out how they're going to operate.
Excellent point.
Well, that was really gloomy. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, on the positive, Mickey, we got to point out this service that you've created around strategic AI, and as you're helping institutions, I think it's a good partnership. We have a lot of opportunity to partner to say, how do we drive these things forward within the organization that they're in? Because they're all slightly different and can operate at different speeds.
I was trying to remember a quote from a book I recently read. Beth Comstock, who was a vice chair person with GE for many, many years. And when you think about speed of change, change will never be slower than it is today. That's our world. We can like it, we can not like it, but we're not slowing. We're not in a space that we see any slowing of things. AI is only going to accelerate it further. We can embrace that and say, I have to move forward, or we will just feel more weight and pressure on us to do it. And the more pressure we feel, the harder it is to think straight, to think strategically, and act accordingly. So I always think that's really, really important. All right, next question. What's something about the partnership that won't show up in the press release, but really matters day to day?
I mean, I always say this to our partners is when we talk about the press release, it's written by marketing. So it's talking about all the positives. What you don't see in a release or a website as clearly as I would love to describe is how much individual consultants or enrollment coaches or whoever it is cares about the university and the students they work with. The only way I've gotten people to fully understand that is to bring them to our offices and have them spend a day listening and interacting with the team. But, I think that that's something that often people come away thinking like, I had no idea your team is living and dying with the same things that we are every day. And so anytime I'm asked this question, I always say, like, I'd love for you to talk to the people that are working at your university, on your university, however it is, and really get the depth of why they do what they do every day and how much they care. So I would love for everybody to know that. And it's the same at Kennedy. I've seen it across the board. It's the same at Human Capital Research Corporation in Chicago. This is one of the things that binds the collective group is this constant focus on we cannot disappoint and we need to accelerate impact for these institutions.
I think across the next few months, we're going to see something really interesting. The companies that are being brought together are highly complementary. They also have a decent amount of overlap, but I would argue that the overlap's in really good areas in ways that will make what ultimately we do better. That is, at some point in time, and it's going to be really soon, we're going to have some phenomenal conversations about the future of aid leveraging in higher education. We've already had really interesting conversations about sort of online strategy writ large and how it starts to blend into not just online strategy, but just growth strategy at institutions, taking the processes and the way that online enterprises have done enrollment and starting to take some of that know-how into the sort of core undergraduate on-ground spaces. Really fascinating is I'll get into a conversation, and Justin had one of these today where, in all of, I think I'll say my hubris, I said, well, we're the ones that know how to do this. And somebody on one of your teams said, oh, no, we do this too. It's good, healthy competition where we're going to make each other better. We're on the same team now. I'm really looking forward to having these conversations to understand, look, I know we've done aid leveraging at Kennedy and Company for over a decade, but Human Capital Research Corporation's been doing aid leveraging for well over 2 decades. What does that mean for the way that we should be doing aid leveraging with our clients, be it in undergrad space, business schools, law schools, whatever it might be, in 5 years, rather than saying who did it better the last 20 years, but what do we do together that's going to be really successful next year and the next 5 years and whatever else it might be. I think that's going to be fun. I think it's going to be very good and healthy. And I think it'll ultimately produce really great service products for our clients.
Well, and I mean, we've also seen, even with the work we've done in the last year, all of the overlap and insights that we get additionally from working in online to undergraduate to graduate, the work that you all do around financial budgeting and moving people to an RCM model or helping in that transition. Running big online programs, every single program is its own P&L. So, it's by its nature run in an RCM model inside of larger institutions that are on traditional budgeting models. So being able to see this broader, these broader offerings and these different connections has been really incredible over the last year. And I only expect that to continue. And, Ben's point about overlap, which this is kind of crazy to me, is we worked with about 225 universities, and you all worked with about 125 universities, and I'd be maybe off 5 or
No,
10.
that's about right. Yeah, yeah.
We only worked on 12 universities in common. So a lot of the learnings that we've each had can now benefit additional universities, as we're helping them with technology implementations, different planning processes, et cetera. So really interesting as you think about, the opportunities that we have to take some of these impactful things out to more people.
So again, I think we're already jumping to the next question. So I think this is a great segue here. So I guess a little bit on a personal note, what are you most excited about now that the deal is done? And what are you really focused on in terms of what's next?
I mean, I'm just really excited to have, one-on-one meetings with Mickey and Ben. I mean, it's going to be great. I would just say at a high level, as CEO, I feel like my focus is on vision, culture, increasing awareness for what we do. I think that's going to be really fun. I mean, I'm meeting 37 new people that I only know slightly. So that's going to be great. As we bring that together, it's going to change the culture in a positive way. It's additive. So I'm really excited about that. And we've been, for the last couple of weeks, talking to our partners. You've been talking to your partners. One of my favorite questions is to ask them, hey, what aren't we doing that would be helpful to you? And then thinking about those things, and do we ever have a right to help them with that? Because Ben, you said it, they're dealing with lots of challenges right now. And, if we can be helpful in solving some of those things with what we do today or what we can do in the future, we're a very curious group and interested in doing that.
Mickey, I think you opened up your first question by saying before all the lawyers and the accountants and all of that, what was the thing? And I will say, I have some sense for where I get energy in my job. And I love all the lawyers and accountants that we worked with. That is not where I get energy in my job. Yeah. And where I'm happiest, where I'm happiest is, I could say, sort of tinkering, building, being that auto mechanic of thinking about this combination of services and technology and trying to think what's going to be really compelling. What do our clients need? What does the market and higher ed at large need that we can build? And what's really exciting is that we are coming into this much bigger team. They have tons of smart people all across the organization that do actually build different things. They've got developers, they've got people that really know technology, X, Y, and Z, all sorts of folks that know other bits and pieces of services that are absolutely mission critical to what higher education likes to do. And so I feel in some ways like, I don't know if it's a kid in a candy store or a kid in a sandbox or something, but that's my happy place. That's where I get energy in the job, is trying to figure out how you put these things together, how you tinker to make something that's really compelling, and doing it in a company that has access to wider resources, both people and financial resources, so that when we find the best idea, the next big thing that we think is going to delight our clients, we can invest in it, not only with people, but with money to make it the best it can be. And that's not something we ever really had at Kennedy and Company. Grew, as Justin said at the beginning, in a very smart way, but it wasn't like we could take these even medium-sized risks when it came to, new service development, new product development. And I really feel like we're in a place that we collectively can do that now. And that's tremendously exciting for me. It's this much more exciting than accounting and legal work.
I mean, Mickey, same question for you. I mean, what excites you about it?
I think a lot of what Ben just said, we, and I shared this with some of the conversations I've had over the last 2 weeks. Kennedy Company had such a successful year in 2025. In 24, Ben, you put me in a role to kind of help oversee our growth. And to an extent, we had more growth than what I think is healthy. I think Purposeful growth, I think, is a term, Justin, you and I have talked about. I would say in the past, I would call it responsible growth. And I don't know that the growth that we had, which was very significant, was the amount that it was a little more than we needed. And we had some major investments we really needed this year in terms of staff. We have to really ramp up staff. And so now we have access to that staff. I'm really excited about it because now we can take that worry and burden off our shoulders and really focus on what's next. How do we do this? You just mentioned this AI strategy and leadership work that we're doing. I'm really, really excited about that because it's, as you said earlier, it's not the technology as much as it is the people in the process and how we adopt the technology and focus on the right uses that really provide the best outcomes for us. And getting that right is really important to say, oh, we're successful with AI. And I think being successful with AI is a key to being successful in the years to come. So getting that right now is really important. I'm excited for that opportunity. Now this deal's here. We've got this in place. Now let's get to work. All right. So one last question. This is it. Now, on the job application on the Kennedy and Company site, we ask candidates to provide three, I'm not going to ask you to provide one, 3 fun facts about themselves. I'm going to ask you each to provide a fun fact that we don't know. Now, Justin, this one, you haven't seen the question before, so I'm going to let you go second. Ben, we'll start with you, and you can't use one that's already on our website in your profile.
Okay. All right. This is a fun fact. I once had a full 10-minute conversation with 19-year-old Leonardo DiCaprio on the 3rd floor of the Musée d'Orsay, asking him why he was trying to hide from all the British schoolgirls that were chasing him around the museum right after, I think it was Romeo and Juliet had come out. And I'm sure he remembers it as much as I do, but I don't think that many people know that I had that little interesting part in my life. Yeah. How's that?
I think
that's not great. On the website.
That's
okay,
not
good.
on the website.
Yeah.
What do you think, Justin?
Well, we've been talking about change. I, out of college, interviewed to be part of a consulting firm in their change management practice. I unfortunately did not get the job, but I did get a job in a retail management program with a company that I won't name, but it's well known, and spent the first 6 weeks, which was my entire tenure with that retail establishment, selling ladies' shoes. And was the assistant manager of the ladies' shoe department in the same year that Married with Children was the #1 TV show. So Al Bundy was a famous shoe salesman. So
yes.
That's not why I left. I ended up moving to work at United Way and do fundraising for 5 years. But it was, a great learning experience and something I don't put on the current website.
We can address this for you, Justin. Yeah. I mean...
Mickey, I know you're in charge of the website now, so don't put that on the website.
This is recorded, so
there's only so much we can do. It's not us. It's
exactly
AI just puts it directly onto the website.
That's right. Well, let's pause there. Thank you both so much for carving out time and for your willingness to come in and share your real thoughts and excitement and ideas around this acquisition. This is, I think, very informative to me, even though I've been involved in the process, but to hear this directly from you, as well as everyone listening and watching, this is a great conversation. So thank you so much for that. Everyone else, thank you for joining us for another episode of Spark and Scale. We'll see you on our next episode.